Thrones is another tie-in story to a popular franchise from Telltale Games. Iron from Ice is the first episode in a season of 6, which is one more episode than their other recent series. Whereas Telltale's previous games have been based on the comics, Game of Thrones is based on the HBO series of the same name. Because the story takes place during a major event towards the end of the 3rd season, as well as references other important events that have happened or are yet to come, I would strongly recommend you are completely caught up to the TV series before starting the game. This will ensure you get the most out of your playthrough. With this being the beginning of the series, it is also important to note that the events may reach into Season 4, but as of this episode, they do not. For the first time in a Telltale series, you will be controlling 3 different characters in separate but interweaving stories, much like the TV series. The first is Garrett Tuttle, a squire for House Forrester. Second is Ethan Forrester, Lord of Ironrath. And third is Mira Forrester, handmaiden to Marjorie Tyrell. Being connected to the HBO series, you'll have Lena Headey voicing Queen Regent Cersei, Peter Dinklage as Tyrion Lannister, Natalie Dormer as Marjorie Tyrell, and Ewan Rheon as Ramsay Snow. The beginning of the episode, like almost all Telltale episodes, starts off with a short amount of discussion and action which sets the stage for the story of the episode. It becomes evident about halfway through that Garrett's storyline lacks a lot of the tension that Ethan and Mira's has, but this is likely because the episode is just a quick look into where his story will be going. The approach to decision-making is the most interesting it has ever been in any of the other series. You are forced to juggle decisions based on how it will affect House Forrester rather than just how it will affect yourself. While this episode didn't delve quite as deep into this as I had hoped, it will likely play a much bigger role in following episodes now that the story has been established.
Joffrey is the one true king, Your Grace.
Just like in The Wolf Among Us, there is a codex that includes characters you have met and places you have been. This is useful for gaining extra information as well as a reminder in case you forget who people are in between episodes. If you have played any of the other recent Telltale games, you already know what to expect. There are conversations you control that will impact the future of the story.
Attacked for no reason.
Garrett was only defending himself.
Then you admit it was your man who killed my men? And a pig farmer at that. How do you answer for your squire, Lord Ethan?
QuickTime events during action sequences. Small bits of exploration.
The Ironwood Grove.
Here. The Bracer of the Sentinel.
And a couple big decisions that have a larger impact on the story.
First small council meeting, it would be wise to bestow this bracer upon your chosen sentinel then, to show that you are decisive and in control of this house.
I found most of the exploration bits a little bit annoying, but they are very few and far between. I found this episode to be very conversation heavy. Nearly all of the action happens before the title sequence begins. This is not an entirely bad thing, as many of the conversations have a great deal of tension, specifically with Cersei and Ramsay Snow. It does, however, give a feeling of an unbalanced experience, especially near the end of the 2 hours this episode offered.
Know me or what I'm capable of.
What does milksop mean?
Both the keyboard and mouse controls and a controller provided a great experience. The controls cannot be rebinded though, so prepare to apologize to your Q key quite a few times. The graphics in Game of Thrones did not resonate with me in the same way that previous Telltale games have. The models did not seem as refined as the characters did in The Wolf Among Us. I would also oftentimes notice that there was almost a halo effect around character models. While the TV series sports some of the most beautiful locations, the first episode rarely takes advantage of this, especially when the background textures randomly become muddied and unclear. Telltale did, however, do a fantastic job of visually representing the characters from the show. Cersei's lip curl is perfect. Tyrion's facial expressions look great. Marjorie has the look of cunning innocence, and Ramsay Snow has a psychotic stare nailed to a T. I encountered very few audio glitches in my playthrough, and the few I did encounter were hardly noticeable. Most of the voice acting is spot on. With all of the HBO actors voicing their own characters, it really makes you feel like the game is truly part of the TV series.
I wouldn't ask this of you if it were not important. I cannot afford any conflict with Cersei with the wedding so near.
You are a girl from the north, here in service to Lady Marjorie. One can only assume her interests are yours. Yet loyalty to a king, that must be absolute, beyond question.
She is a threat to the crown, isn't she? The most dangerous handmaiden in all of King's Landing.
Not my best work, unfortunately. I suppose I have fallen out of practice. But he didn't make it easy, what with all that bloody noise.
While Ethan and Mira's voice acting seemed very appropriate, I couldn't help but be annoyed at Garrett's voice the entire time. It felt very forced and unauthentic. This became a very big distraction for me, but it is likely most people will not be bothered by it.
Sword. I'll have one like it myself someday. Who my uncle is has nothing to do with it.
As expected, the game was a smooth 60 frames per second at 1080p with an Intel 3570K processor, GTX 970 graphics card, and 8 GB of RAM. The loading times were short, but as with all Telltale games, very frequent. The graphics options are limited to texture quality, anti-aliasing, full screen, and resolution. This is pretty standard for these games.
It's unfortunate.
As a Game of Thrones fan, I thought the first episode was very
Talia
good.
and Ethan.
It's a game focused on
suppose
narrative
Lord
rather
Ethan
than
now.
action,
It's
so if you don't
over.
like the feeling that you are
It's
simply
over when my
participating in
son
a
says
story,
it is.
it may not be for you.
Thank
With
you
one of
for
the best
coming.
cliffhangers in any season to date,
I'm
I give Game
told
of
he
Thrones
has a
Episode
paramount.
1, Iron from Ice, a 4 out of 5.